start talking in 2008 about de-Westernization. And we know, Lee Kuan Yew tell the story that Deng Xiaoping, after the Mao died, went to consult with Lee Kuan Yew. So what is the difference here between the Cold War in the last part of the 20th century and what we call de-Westernization today? Well, I said before, China is capitalist, but it's not neoliberal. On the contrary, China is one of the main forces today that is kind of stopping neoliberals. Why? A lot of people see neoliberalism as a kind of new stage of capitalism, as it is. But there is another project, another aspect of the neoliberal project that is very, very, very important. China is a homogenization of neoliberal and that was the Christian project since the 16th century, to homogenize the world. And that was the project of the British Empire, to civilize the world. So China is stopping that. So a lot of people in the West are disoriented or make fun that China is capitalist, is Maoist, and is Confucianist. And that one of the key points of de-Westernization is that the consolidation of a powerful state allows them, on the one hand, to negotiate. Of course, China negotiates with the West, and the West negotiates with China, and so Russia, and so Iran, in the different ways, But the question is, what we can call the reconstitution of their own knowledge, their own culture, their own memory, their own language. That, I think, is the big difference. So we know, you know better than I mean, that Iran will not collapse, because Iran is not just consolidated by the kind of military power and state power and economic power, even with difficulty, but it's a whole what we call culture, but culture in the sense of way of living in the world. This is what we are. And so Russia, because one of the things that called my attention with Putin is that when he intervenes, when he stopped the Western intention of controlling Kiev and controlling Ukraine, he just took the portion of Ukraine that historically belongs to Russia, and also he kind of created, pronounced a lot of discourse going back to the memories of Russia to justify his intervention. So in those three cases, but during the Cold War, Stalin and Mao, they kind of sidelined, Stalin sidelined Orthodox Church. They made negotiation, but Stalin was following the rule of the liberal capitalist sidelining the Christian Church. So one of the distinctive features of de-Westernization are consolidation of dissident in relation to the West. And that's a problem we see today with China and United States. And when we read what the Chinese diplomatics said, more and more they are saying, well, we don't accept that anymore. And that kind of affirmation is not an affirmation of Marxism. That affirmation is an affirmation of their own culture. So that is what de-Westernization means. Not to kind of cut 100% in relation to the West. It's impossible for many reasons. The West is there with a kind of the expansion during the 500 years. And it's in all of us. We have to recognize that. But what distinguishes de-Westernization, and that is what Mahbubani kind of underscore in a chapter of a book that published in 2008, that's the irreversible shift to the Eastern Hemisphere, is that what kind of he characterized as de-Westernization, and I elaborated with my own examples and my own kind of conceptual tools. So that's the question is, well, let me go into re-Westernization. What is re-Westernization? Re-Westernization is the counter-revolution. It's a counter-revolution that we can see, we could have seen coming with Bush and Cheney, but obviously with Obama. So re-Westernization is the effort to regain the leadership of the West that was discredited with Bush and Cheney trying to kind of expand democracy, as George Bush used to say, to justify the invasion of Iraq. But recently, Condoleezza Rice said, we never went to Iraq for democracy. What other reason? So if Condoleezza Rice said it today, so she's kind of helping to reveal the logic, the underlying logic of the invasion of Iraq. But Obama tried to kind of reestablish the to repair the loss of hegemony. That is the moment in which the West began to lose hegemony. Obama saw that and tried to do it through the discourse of Cairo and then the Honolulu discourse by Hillary Clinton when he said the 21st century is the American Pacific century because they don't see China kind of growing. So re-Westernization is the moment in which the West, the European Union is always a kind of mystery there, and I want to kind of try to kind of say something about that. Re-Westernization is the effort to kind of establish the hegemony. At the moment of the Western hegemony is kind of crumbling. And now, especially after Trump, we see that already United States lost hegemony, but kind of move into domination. And the sanctions, the military bases, is that the kind of the politic of domination that is being considered necessary. Because, I mean, Kissinger said that at one moment, he began to see the problem. Kissinger is a very intelligent diplomat, a very intelligent person. He saw the problem. He saw that the Western was losing hegemony. But, he said, the world needs a leader. And United States at this moment is the only state that can be the leader. So that is the problem of re-Westernization today. So why this is relevant to Israel-Palestine? I think that at the level of interstate relation, and well, I mean, there are already kind of have a conversation and agreement between Abbas and Jinping. So while Israel is supported by the process of re-Westernization, and re-Westernization need Israel as a state. Why? Because re-Westernization at this moment is supported not just by military bases and sanctions and all this kind of financial possibilities, but in the interstate global relation, there are three states that are crucial for re-Westernization. One is Japan, that kind of allows the kind of the hub, the home in the Middle East, in the Pacific. The other is Israel in the Middle East, and the third is Colombia in Latin America. So if you see those kind of three states and you see the three states in relation to United States, you will see that those are crucial state organization that establish the allies. United States have a lot of allies, but I think that there is special kind of alliances between these states and United States. So in this sense, I think that you probably you saw it, but I think that Palestine has other options today. So the Palestine relation with Iraq is with Iran are already well known. With Russia is more difficult, given the kind of the relationship. I mean, the Jewish population in Russia, but also the Jewish population in Israel. So I don't know whether what kind of Putin politics is there, will be or is at this moment. But China is less compromised, let's put it that way, in the conflict Palestine-Israel as it is Russia. And well, and Iran, of course, I mean, they are Persian, they are not Arab, but they are Muslim, and so you know better than I this kind of situation. So the question is that in the international level, Palestine has a different other option that didn't exist before. So the option of de-Westernization. And de-Westernization, as it is today, there are three key states, Russia, China, and Iran, kind of protecting the Central Asia, which is a very desirable place for, and I have been for many years, Powell, when he was a minister of the Secretary of State, has already, Colin Powell has already a kind of vision of the possibility of United States to kind of controlling South Asia, Central Asia. And to finish, decoloniality as decolonization. Well, the question now after Quijano is that decolonization can no longer be a project of the states. That, I mean, we saw it in Bolivia. Evo Morales kind of created a Secretary of Decolonization. But there is a lot to say there, but I mean, it's decolonization at the service of the state cannot work, because the state is ingrained in the international relation, but also cannot avoid capitalism, and cannot avoid the corporation, the elites in each locale, that kind of forcing the state to make certain decisions. So decoloniality as decolonization is in the hands of the people, us. Whatever kind of experience, personal histories, communal history, areas of experience that we are involved. The question is, and what does it mean that is in us? And it means two things. On the one hand is to kind of, the diagnosis of coloniality allow us to understand from what area, because coloniality is a complex structure that I didn't have time to elaborate. It's not just, but let's say political, economic, and cultural, to summarize in a block. So let's say that we have to kind of, the link from the cultural temptation that modernity and postmodernity kind of offer to people through many ways. I mean, iPod, credit cards, entertainment, etc., etc. And the technology that trap us and prevent us from thinking. Because one of the things of technology that is different from the manipulation of the consumer during the Cold War, I mean, during the 50s, the second half of the 20th century, is that the kind of the advertising, the manipulation of the consumer, what to consume. But the question of technology is kind of controlling our subjectivity and said what we have to do. They're kind of imposing us a way of being and way of doing, which is much more powerful than consuming. So being aware of this kind of this diagnosis of what kind of world are we in. So the question is how to the link. And to the link means to change our subjectivity and to change our knowledge. And that is why the kind of epistemological reconstitution is very important, because if we reconstitute the knowledge that has been destituted and continue to be destituted, we kind of reconstitute also our subjectivities. And the second is to kind of think about the reconstitution of the communal, because society, the Western concept of society, destitute the communal. And what is the difference? That the Western society is founded in the idea of the individual, the free individual that is in society, but before society comes the individual, and we saw it in during the COVID. That people who kind of rejected lockdown to maintain their freedom without thinking that they may endanger other people next to them. So reconstituting the communal means reconstituting a form of living in which the main goal is not success or is not money, but is living together. It's living together in plenitude and harmony, as many indigenous philosophy say. Well, I stop there. I hope that those few observations may have some sense to you to do the diagnosis and to think about the prognosis. On the one hand, about the interstate level, but on the other hand, at the personal level. And that's why I was interested in being in this conference, to see how are you facing the problems, and what is the relationship with the issues that we are dealing here in the United States, in Argentina, in Bolivia. Well, thank you very much. I stop there. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much for this very rich overview on theoretical aspects of colonialism, such as linkage between modernity and colonialism, linkage between colonialism and nation state, decolonization and nation state, the role of the Bible in colonialism, and Palestine being the third example of this. I was especially impressed by the linkage you established.
I lost your voice.
You lost my voice, I'm sorry. You lost my voice.
I cannot. All of a sudden, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Put the volume up. I listen all the first point of it very clear.
Okay. I was only trying to say how impressive this lecture and this presentation was. and final conclusions that decolonization is in the hand of people. On behalf of Muwatin Institute and on behalf of the audience, I want to thank you very much for this very rich and very useful lecture. Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you for allowing me to kind of share my ideas. Mine are not just my ideas, a lot of people who are working with you.
Thank you. Carla?
I am reading here. I am reading the. Trying to read the